Scarecrow. Hackman's outstanding in his field tonight.
Hello, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Thanks for joining us on TCM, where we're celebrating the birthday of one of my favorite actors, probably one of yours as well, the singular Gene Hackman, a leading man, character actor, if there ever was one. Hackman, who turns 95 today, made a series of challenging and unconventional films during the 1970s. Coming up, we got three of his best from that magical era of American movies. We begin tonight with the picture that made Hackman an unquestioned Hollywood star. From 20th Century Fox in 1971, directed by William Friedkin, The French Connection. Hackman is Popeye Doyle in this one. Popeye is a misanthropic, angry, bigoted New York narcotics detective with little use for doing things by the book. Despite his flaws, you might find yourself drawn to him against your better judgment. That, I think, is one of Gene Hackman's great tricks. The force of his character wills you to root for him, no matter the circumstances. Anyway, Popeye and his partner, Buddy Russo, played by Roy Scheider, find themselves in pursuit of the ringleader of an international heroin smuggling racket. This leads to one of the most thrilling and unforgettable car chase sequences ever filmed, with Hackman careening his Pontiac Le Mans across busy New York streets. The French Connection cleaned up at the Oscars, winning Best Picture, with Friedkin collecting Best Director and Hackman earning Best Actor. As I said, this was Hackman's breakthrough role, and Friedkin, his director, did not flinch in making the film as gritty as possible. As an actor, Hackman appreciated that, calling Friedkin a perfectionist. I don't think I'd ever been pushed as much by a director, Hackman said, which was really good for me. Friedkin took an unconventional approach to keep Hackman motivated. The director got him angry by constantly belittling his performance. He would finish a take filled with rage and then walk off the set for the rest of the day, Friedkin later explained. That was exactly what I wanted. Friedkin didn't do it because he felt that was the way to coax a good performance out of Hackman, but rather to create an atmosphere where the star would do his best work. Here is Gene Hackman in that Academy Award-winning performance, released by 20th Century Fox in 1971, The French Connection. That was Gene Hackman in The French Connection as Popeye Doyle, an anti-social misanthrope and an unapologetic racist, which made Hackman uncomfortable at times playing the character. That was who the guy is, Hackman said, adding, you couldn't really whitewash him. Doyle was based on a real-life New York detective named Eddie Egan, who shared some of those character traits. The hard-headed Egan was often on set. He was an advisor on the film. Hackman got to know him, warts and all. The two men did not get along well, but Hackman understood Egan better after spending 2 weeks on patrol with the detective. One night, in a scene closely mirrored in the film, Hackman watched Egan burst into art to rant and toss around, in Hackman's words, some real bad dudes. When it came time for Hackman to do something similar in a scene on the movie set, he thought he'd never get through it alive. He faced what he called 50 of the toughest, rattiest-looking people I'd ever seen in my life. Turns out they weren't real bad dudes, but actual police officers cast as extras, much to Hackman's relief. Ahead tonight, Hackman returns to play a very different kind of detective in a dark neo-noir that stands as one of the most underappreciated films of the 1970s. From 1975, Night Moves is next on TCM.
Next on TCM, Night Moves, then Scarecrow, and later The Domino Principle. We all fall for Hackman tonight.
Hello, Ben Mankiewicz with you on TCM, where we're in the midst of a 5-movie mini-marathon celebrating the 95th birthday of one of the finest actors of his generation, Gene Hackman. In a succession of performances layered with subtle intensity and mischievous charm, Hackman has managed to make nearly every one of his characters memorable. All the movies on our schedule tonight came during Hackman's breakout decade, the 1970s, though he continued to be brilliant right up until he retired from screen acting 21 years ago. We begin tonight with one of Hackman's best, a zigzagging neo-noir released by Warner Brothers in 1975, Night Moves. The story starts, but doesn't end, in Los Angeles, where Hackman's character, Harry Mosby, is a retired NFL player now working as a private detective. He scrapes by with whatever cases he can get, chasing clues around L.A. in his Ford Mustang. Harry gets hired by a washed-up, boozed-up actress to find her troubled daughter, Deli. Deli is played by a teenage Melanie Griffith, who gets her first screen credit in the film. What unfolds is a trail of evidence, deception, seduction, and violence that takes Harry across the country to the Florida Keys. Night Moves is reflective of its post-Watergate era. Hackman's Harry Mosby is filled with self-doubt, confused by the new rules in this world that he's trying to create for himself. The movie reunited Hackman with director Arthur Penn, who gave Hackman a big break, casting him in the 1967 crime drama Bonnie and Clyde. Penn loved Hackman's work, summing up his appeal to both directors and to movie fans. American movies have always had certain kinds of self-styled actors who shouldn't be stars but are, Penn said, and Gene is in the company of Bogart, Tracy, and Cagney. From Warner Brothers, 1975, also with Susan Clark as Hackman's unhappy wife, as well as Jennifer Warren and James Woods, typically impressive in an early role. This is Night Moves. To me, that's a pretty perfect movie with an A-plus ending. Gene Hackman had a productive and varied 1975 beyond his work in Night Moves. He appeared in 3 other movies technically released in 75, an offbeat Western written and directed by Richard Brooks called Bite the Bullet. He reprised his signature role as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection 2, and he starred alongside James Caan and Liza Minnelli in a comedy that became a notorious box office flop, Lucky Lady. But it was a film released at the tail end of 1974 that became one of the biggest hits of 75, giving Hackman one of his most unexpected roles, a part in the Mel Brooks-directed parody of classic Universal horror films, Young Frankenstein, written by Brooks and Gene Wilder. Hackman got wind of the project from Wilder, his weekend tennis buddy. Hackman asked if there were any parts in the film that he might be able to play. "I'm dying to do some comedy," Hackman said to his friend. Wilder told him about the part of the blind hermit. It was a small role, and Hackman wouldn't be paid much money. Hackman eagerly jumped at the chance, adding another one of the best movies of the 1970s to his impressive filmography and demonstrating his knack for comedy, which shows up in sly ways in nearly all of Hackman's dramatic roles. Coming up, Gene Hackman partners with another A-list actor, Al Pacino, in a 1973 drama about 2 misfits desperate for a new start. Scarecrow is next on TCM.
Next on TCM, Scarecrow, then The Domino Principle, and later, The Gypsy Moths. Gene Hackman spreads his wings tonight.
Hello, Ben Mankiewicz with you. Thanks for watching TCM, where we're in the middle of a night of movies with leading man Gene Hackman, celebrating his 95th birthday today. Currently living in New Mexico, Hackman has been retired from acting for 21 years. But he could have retired 41 years ago, and he would still stand as one of the finest actors of his generation. And one can argue that his generation has produced the best American actors ever. Gene Hackman's performances are consistently complicated, filled with emotion, but it's a reserved feeling with Hackman. He often conveys his meaning with a stare, a subtle squint, the bare beginnings of a grin. After Hackman broke out as a major star in The French Connection in 1971, that's the movie that earned Hackman his first Academy Award, he continued to star in both big hits as well as underappreciated, often overlooked gems. We have a film that fits in the latter category up next. From Warner Brothers in 1973, Scarecrow. In Scarecrow, Hackman shares leading man responsibilities with another uncompromising star of the new Hollywood era, Al Pacino. Essentially a road movie, Scarecrow details the physical and psychological condition of two emotionally damaged drifters living on the edge of what we would now call the grid. Hackman is Max, a hothead, freshly out of San Quentin prison in Northern California and looking to make a new start in Pittsburgh. Pacino is Lionel, Lion for short. He's an ex-sailor, similarly heading back east to reunite with the wife and child he left behind. Scarecrow slots in with other road movies of the era, films that are really character studies, like Badlands, directed by Terrence Malick with Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek, or the Monty Hellman-directed Two-Lane Blacktop, which featured a couple of musicians, James Taylor and Dennis Wilson, alongside Warren Oates and Laurie Bird. Jerry Schatzberg directed Scarecrow. He came from the world of still photography, where he first made his mark. Among Schatzberg's best-known pictures is the photo of Bob Dylan on the cover of his album Blonde on Blonde. Schatzberg shot Scarecrow, his third film as a director, in sequence, allowing his two characters and his two stars to develop their relationship as the story unfolded. However, Schatzberg soon discovered Hackman and Pacino took entirely different approaches to their work. Schatzberg said Pacino threw himself into his role, embodying the character even when the cameras stopped rolling, while Hackman compartmentalized his work, disappearing into his own world when not on set. Hackman and Pacino did research their roles together by dressing up in ratty secondhand clothes and asking for change on the streets of San Francisco. Hackman once described the film as a mixture of Midnight Cowboy and of Mice and Men. He also said it featured one of his personal favorite performances. From 1973, Scarecrow. Gene Hackman retired from filmmaking in 2004. He once jokingly said that he'd be open to making another film provided that it was shot in his house. Hackman embarked on an unexpected second career late in life. He's a successful novelist. He shared an interest in deep-sea diving with his neighbor in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Daniel Lenahan, an underwater archaeologist. That sparked the pair's first novel, Wake of the Perdido Star, published in 1999. They wrote two more novels, and Hackman went on to write two additional ones by himself. Hackman was asked in 2011 how he'd like to be remembered, and he said, as a decent actor, as someone who tried to portray what was given to them in an honest fashion. Coming up, Hackman is an imprisoned killer promised freedom by a shady organization with plans to use him to pull off a sinister plot. The Domino Principle from 1977 is next on Turner Classic Movies.
Next on TCM, The Domino Principle, then The Gypsy Moths, and later, I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. TCM is your escape tonight. Get ready.